Welcome back to Prime Girl Wellness and Down to Earth Astrology. This is Miss Jenny and I am your astrologer. This is the last video of the series. This is part 6, and in our video series Dogs of War, this video will more closely examine the prospects and possibilities of an outbreak of war, or if this is all just theater or a giant pissing contest between two dogs across a fence. Let's take a look. So here we have the lunar return for February 2022 for Joseph Biden, as well as his year ahead report 2021 to 2022. Now, this is why I said in an earlier video that we knew the 18th was going to be an important day, and just like clockwork, it was. And so I did this series of slides more than a few days ago, but as you can see, it's a lot of examination and recording. So I had to take a break. But in my notations here, this is all from earlier. Link here. We knew, looking at the charts, that February 10th and 17th/18th were going to be very, very important for Biden. And we got the notice about the public proclamation that Russia was maybe, probably, possibly, definitely, sort of going to invade Ukraine. We were preparing for it, which means that he had to have had this conversation on the 17th. So the 17th, 18th makes sense and absolutely fits into the narrative that we've got going right here. Well, not narrative, but prediction that something important was happening. Other hot dates along with these, right? The other hot dates this month in February you guys want to watch would have been the 9th, which is past, and the 12th, which is also past. So we've got one left, and that's the 24th. So let's keep an eye on the 24th and see what happens. So the lunar return for February, a lunar return looks at the snapshot of the month. It's a very fast-moving horoscope. It's just for that 1 month, and we're looking for overarching themes more than anything else. And in this particular month, we've got Sun, Saturn squaring Uranus, which is just an incredibly uncomfortable aspect. So Biden would have been in a relatively agitated position to begin with. So there's that. Also, too, this month we've got Mercury and Pluto together, and Pluto's in the degree of the node. So if those of you who use the nodes, the degree of the node is a point of fate. So Mercury and Pluto together with the Pluto in the degree of node means that there are some meant to be fated circumstances that he was going to find himself dealing with, whether he wanted to or not. Now, otherwise, this should be a relatively pleasant, easy month. This is all personal agitation at this point because we've got this Venus-Mars conjunction, which is taking a beautiful sextile to Jupiter, and it's taking a nice trine to the moon, right? We've got Neptune over here, and Neptune's doing beautiful stuff to that Mercury-Pluto conjunction. There's a lot of really nice, pleasant things happening in this chart for the month of February. So this agitation, this kind of thing, like getting all revved up and trying to break loose, may have been more personally generated than necessarily externally generated, meaning that there were probably other ways things could have been handled, but first he would have had to get his own mind right. He would have had to get himself in a more optimal state of being, which, looking at this through the month of February, has not been the case. He's just been agitated all month. So that, as we all know, how you feel makes a lot of difference in how you deal with things. Cough, cough. Okay, so let's look at the solar return for 2021, 2022. So again, what we're looking for, anything that could possibly like catapult us into, dear God, another military conflict with anybody. We just don't need that right now. Golly day. So here's what we're seeing. So the first thing is in his solar return, when this is in effect until, for him, this is in effect until November 2022. So this is in effect until this November. We've got a Moon-Uranus conjunction. So the solar return moon is conjuncting his personal Uranus, and it's also opposing his ascendant, which, more the irritability, agitation factor. So where we had Trump and his insanity to deal with, good God, that man's a mental case. you know, on his own little personal fantasy island because he's got that intercepted full moon in his chart. He literally lives on his own island in his head. Um, mm, God, it must be nice to have that kind of money. uh, Biden is carrying this agitated Moon Uranus conjunction. So things are not going to happen fast enough, and he's going to be prone to fits and starts in his energy, and a lot of snap decisions. Thank God we're in a democracy and not an autocracy where you can make these decisions. We all have to follow along blindly. So there are safeguards in place that will prevent the worst of these things from happening. Now, when these things come up in your personal chart, the way to ameliorate them and make best use of them is to take that energy and apply it to something constructive and in keeping with what the planet describes. So if Mr. Biden could, I don't know, maybe give up his corporate ties, we all know he has them. We all know he has them. And actually get on the bandwagon with progress and change, you know, as it is desperately, sorely needed, you know, in a much more daring way. He would use that Uranian energy to his advantage and be not only wildly successful with it, but also it would become part of his legacy, you know, or the thing people remember him by, like Franklin Delano Roosevelt, you know, took out his risks and used his charts without realizing it to his advantage, and now he's remembered for all those good things. But what Biden does between now and his birthday this year, it's anyone's game. So we still got time, but it's a whole lot of agitation between now and then we're dealing with. So here we have the lunar return and for March and April of 2022 for Biden specifically, not the administration or the country, but Biden specifically. And an uncomfortable snapshot of time that I'm looking at. So the thing about it is, March, we know, is going to be a big hot zone month. March is a sensitive, critical, really, it's going to be a month. It's going to be a spicy and dicey month. So anything that we can do to avoid the worst of it in March has to be done, because by the time we get to April, right, there will literally, we will, blah, 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 blah. We will be at a point of no return. And the reason I say that, we'll start with April and work backwards, is come the month of April, right here, we've got Mercury, which is a planet of communications, agreements, and negotiations, right? It is combust the sun in the ninth house. There will be no discussing anything that month with anyone. And more than people being tight-lipped and hard-nosed and digging their heels in, nope, I don't want to know, I'm not going to talk about it. It's going to be just problematic in terms of making effective communications internationally with any of the foreign leaders, right? And it'll be the same way for them with us. Like, nobody's going to be able to talk to anybody effectively during the month of April for God knows what reasons, but that's where it's at. It will just be difficult. Not to mention a lot of short, hot tempers that month as well. So this is not really the time you want to negotiate sensitive things anyway, if you can avoid it. The other reason is because in April, and this is for Biden specifically, right? He's got he's got Mars and Saturn sitting there in the seventh house with Venus there as well. Mars and Saturn is very unfriendly and uncompromising. Mars and Saturn in the seventh house is or represents people who will not budge or bend. This in combination with people who you are having difficulty having clear, effective communications with is a recipe for disaster if you have to make sensitive discussions, because nothing gets accomplished. If anything, you might accidentally make things worse without even realizing it. It's just not a great month. And I'm not liking it. So we've got to get all of this under control before April, because come April, it's just a hot, big old pile of dog doo to be stepped in literally at any second. The dates that we need to watch in March are going to be March 20th and 22nd. So let's keep an eye on what he does or what comes out of his mouth through press releases or press conferences around the 20th or 22nd of March. Now, with that said, let's go back to the month of March. So we know March is going to be a spicy, dicey month, about as much fun as doing a polka through a landmine. So what we're hoping for is that we don't end up in conflict in March. It won't happen now. We still got another week or so before we're in March and this lunar return starts. But it's close enough. Oh my God, it's close enough. Okay. So the first thing that we see is we've got the moon, right? And Venus, Mars right here. We've got these two things in square aspect with each other. Now, the thing that concerns me is this Venus-Mars is over here in the 12th house, which is the hidden house of secrets, things that you don't see that are not out visible to the public or just anybody passing by. With the Moon squaring that from the 3rd house of communications and agreements and negotiations, there is the suggestion that the problem is actually not a disagreement, but a broken agreement or a misrepresentation of something, or a negotiation that fell through, or the suggestion of something that was never followed through on because it was never serious. Words and communications, promises, like handshake agreements, assumptions of trust that you would do whatever you insinuated you would do, right? Because this is all Moon, Venus, Mars. These are appearing to be the crux of the problem here in March. And it can go both ways, but this is Biden's lunar return we're looking at, not Putin's. So I would wonder what it is Biden might be responsible for and have forgotten, that he said or suggested or intimated. Whatever these things are, what I can tell you is this: we're not going to know because it's sitting in the 12th house of secrets. And they're all backroom stuff. These are things that we are never going to be told about if they can avoid it. Now, at the same time, the other thing is that he's carrying a Sun-Jupiter conjunction in the chart for the lunar return. Now, the thing with the Sun-Jupiter conjunction, we had a similar effect during the Trump administration. Remember we were talking about how the Trump administration had that grand trine in their chart, and pretty much they could have done anything. They could have walked us into war and people would have embraced it, as a good thing and made excuses for him. Luckily, he didn't do that, but they did other things instead. So the thing about it is that loving support and embracing of them from the public is what Biden will be experiencing through March. So he could walk us into war and people would still stand behind him 200%. He could drive us all off a cliff. He could, rob the federal tax reserve. He could do any number of things, good or bad. But he would still look like the good guy in the situation temporarily. And this is the problem. When people are doing things they know they're not supposed to do, or they're trying to get away with stuff, if they look good in the moment, there's this confidence that they get that they're going to get away with it permanently. Like, if I got away with it now, if I can just do the next 5 minutes, I'll be scot-free, and that's not true. Trump and his administration are now taking their knocks for not acting with integrity, which is what you have to do when you have power in your position of authority. And Biden is required to do, everyone, even Biden is required to do the same thing, is act with integrity, when they're employing their power in their position. So Biden may look like the nice guy no matter what he does right now, good or bad. If he's not doing the right thing when this transit wears off, which it will by April, the veneer will be gone and the truth will be out there, and there's no hiding the shenanigans that were happening that should have not have occurred in the first place. So in any event, this looks like this is part of the problem in March. So hopefully our administration, because we are a democracy, not an autocracy, a theocracy, or a monarchy, but a democracy, hopefully they will have enough checks and balances and common sense in place that they will stop the madness before it gets worse. I'm just saying. Okay. Now, also, too, we've got Venus and Mars squaring Uranus. The Moon applies to that Venus and Mars, but the Venus and Mars is in tight with Uranus at this time during the month. So national security, 4th house, the security of the home, national security is absolutely something that is of high red alert priority consideration this month in March. Also, too, with Venus and Mars coming out of the 12th house of secrets and behind the scenes things, more sabotage, and certainly more hacking and security compromise and all that stuff you don't want to do or to know about. Now with Venus, Mars, and Pluto here in the 12th house, this could also, interestingly, and here's where the easily amused part of myself and the rest of the world gets in, and there could be some honeypot traps that are sprung in March that could be extremely compromising or embarrassing for somebody. So I can't wait to find out about Ms. Lindsey Graham and her little boy toys. Oops, did I say that out loud? I'm just saying, all those little secrets may find their way out to the surface this month. Unfortunately, Biden's involved. So, I mean, Venus does rule his, Mercury rules his 5th house. I don't know. I can't imagine it's him. Maybe there's an attempt to blackmail him, but Jesus, he's 80. Like, what is he having an affair with his pillow? I don't know. Um, so anyway, there's that. So it may be his kids that we hear about, because we haven't actually heard anything about Biden in a while. So it'll be interesting to see if he pops up next month as well and turns out to be a part of this problem. In any event, hot days for the month of March. Watch these days. March 7th, 8th, 9th, and 17th. In particular, the 7th, the big hotspot days in the month of March. Now, if we can get through the month of March and we can avoid going to war, we should be okay. Because again, by the time we get to April, there is no going back on anything. Whatever is in place, and you're just going to have to live with it, which is not something we're real thrilled about. Okay, so there's that. All right, so March 20th and 22nd, March 7th, 8th, 9th, and 17th, but specifically the 7th. And let's get on with the slides. And in case you've been living under a rock for 100 years, the man on the left is President Putin from Russia, and the man on the right is President Biden from the United States. Okay, this looks a lot worse than it is. So this is the solar return for President Putin. I've got the solar return on the left and a biwheel chart, which is his natal and the solar return together on the right. It's not quite so terrifying. It's okay. Hang in there with me. All right, so some notable things that are happening with Putin during the month of March, because if it's a conflict with Putin, we should be able to see it across both charts. Okay, so the first thing that's the biggest is we're seeing a Mars-Neptune square from solar return to natal chart. So a couple of things. Biden may be having some health issues, or Biden, I'm so sorry, Putin may be having some health issues that he deals with this month. Also, Neptune rules gas and Sagittarius rules wide open spaces. So the pipelines, the gas pipelines that run out through big, arid, wild areas are not heavily populated, may become a very big source of issue or contention for him. At the same time, transiting Uranus will conjunct his natal Jupiter, so there will be a lucky break of some kind that will occur this month, or some opportunities that will land in his lap that should possibly help, or not. It could be a disaster that turns out to be something very fortunate for him later, but you can't tell at the time when it happens. Transiting Sun will also be squaring his natal Sun, so again, he's also very agitated this month, very get on with it, get out of my way sort of thing. And that is, you don't want agitated leaders. You really don't want agitated leaders. Do not make the air traffic controller and the man with the nuclear codes agitated. I'm just saying. I'm just saying. Okay. He will carry a Moon-Venus opposition this month. So, in terms of his appeal to the general public, he's going to struggle with it this month. So he would not, it would do him well to not invite problems also. Because he's not going to get a lot of support and sympathy from the people around or underneath him. Mars and Mercury will come together this month in his chart very closely. And again, from the 11th to the 12th. So there may be some behind the scenes deals. And it's crossing his Saturn and Neptune. Yeah, so with him, also this month, again, agreements, negotiations, communications. So, your word is your bond sort of thing. These are the things that are going to come up for review this month for Putin. So the partnerships and alliances that he has, the few of them that he has, are definitely going to be put through a stress test this month. And there may also be a severing of an established relationship of some kind with other people. Now, the established relationship does not necessarily have to be marriage or a sympathetic alliance. The established relationship could be anybody he's supplying or receiving goods and services from. So there's a possibility of a very serious severing of ties in that way. And a lot of it will have to do with, again, agreements that were breached or promises that were not kept. He's got some lucky breaks that are coming in this month, but again, he's not getting a lot of support and sympathy from people around or underneath him. So this is not a good time to take unnecessary risks. And yeah, I don't know. I just see, because he's got this, the part of fortune is going to be on his Pluto at the top of that chart. I just feel like something really big is going to land in his lap, something really big and fortunate, or could prove to be extremely valuable for him later. We may or may not ever find out about that, or at least not in the immediate future, but it's there. And again, this Mars, Neptune, square. There's something going on with the gas or pipelines or fracking, fuels, fossil fuels, open areas, wide open spaces and areas. Neptune usually rules gases. It can rule liquids. That's why I'm thinking gas, because gas, I think, can be delivered as both gas and both liquid and gas. Not sure what that is. Also, too, yeah, see, there may be something going on, too, in terms of the virus. There may be some breakthrough or something to that effect, some breakthrough or some lucky break where the virus is concerned in Russia. Not sure what that is, so we'll keep an eye on that. But so far, other than that, I'm not seeing anything here that looks like he's going to make a huge aggressive invasion of anything. It doesn't mean it won't happen. I could be wrong. I'm just an astrologer. I'm just saying, in terms of March, I don't see any aggressive, combative military kind of action. Okay, so what we're looking at here is the lunar return. On the left side, we're looking at the lunar return for Putin, and on the right side, we're looking at Putin's natal chart as well as the lunar return. And they're just put together. It looks a lot more complicated than it is. Okay, so some notable things about his month of March. So now this is going to cover the period of time from March 9th to April 9th or 10th. The first thing is his natal Mars. Remember that active Mars we talk about in his chart a lot, that very Marsian Mars. Well, it is rising on the top of the chart in the month of March. So all of those Mars traits, the aggression, the conquering, the competitiveness, the manly man sort of behavior, the chest beating, all the things we associate with young men and testosterone, and soldiers and law enforcement and people wearing uniforms and carrying big weapons. These are the things, that inflammatory response. These are the things that are coming front and center in the month of March. So it is very possible that he could be in physically invading Ukraine. Now, and my question, of course, is that given all of the more than competent hackers he has at his disposal in the criminal underground and general population of Russia, who did such a fine job of interfering with a couple of people here and also with the hackers in China. Like, I don't understand why anybody would need to go through all the theatrics of, men in uniforms and tanks and all that sort of stuff, except as a psychological scare tactic and also, well, I mean, for theater, right? But I am not a national leader, so I clearly don't know how these things work. I'm just saying it seems like an awful lot of physical sweat and labor for, what is essentially things you could just as easily do with a couple pushes of a button. All right, so there's that. Now, one of the other things that's happening in the month of March is that his ascendant, this Scorpio ascendant of his, is coming to the very top of the chart, the most public position in the chart, which means that his identity and his leadership ability, all of these things, again, are going to be front and center. So it's not just him beating his chest, and making war cries, in the manner of young rams in the spring, as it were, vying for dominance. This is very much an identity thing that's coming full front and center for him in the month of March. So far, this is not sounding great. Now, with this going on at the same time, with this going on, now he's got a Sun, Jupiter, Neptune conjunction in the second house. The Sun, Jupiter, and Neptune all speak to opportunities and strokes of luck, things that will land in his lap, lucky breaks, that could have to do with the water, any body of water, ocean, sea, river, lake, or liquids and or gases. Now, I think gas can travel in the form of a liquid or a gas. So it may be gases, natural gases, that become a surprising source of value to him in this month. The problem is it is intercepted. So the chances of him being able to access it are not so good. So whatever it is that's there right in front of him, he can't quite get to because there will be much interference. And whatever this thing is that just lands in his lap, as it were, that has value, will be held back in reserve and kept away from his reach, at least through the month of March, which will increase his frustration, which could easily give us this inflamed Mars behavior that we're going to see in the month of March. Boy, aren't you looking forward to that? So he is someone who should be handled carefully, for sure. Now, also this month, remember this lucky break that lands in his lap, gases, natural resources, liquids. things of that nature, will be making a quincunx to all those Libra planets. So I suspect that whatever this is, this fruit-bearing tree that's being dangled in front of him, like a big juicy fruit that you'd really, really want, is going to be through partners or his partnerships, and that may be why it is hemmed in and he's having difficulty getting to it. So that will be interesting to watch to see how that plays out. I don't actually know enough. I'm not going to lie. I don't know enough about geopolitics to make any kind of sensible explanation about what this could possibly be. So if you know more than I do, or you have better ideas, please let us know. Otherwise, you're going to watch right along with me. We'll see how this goes. Now, here's what's really important about the month of March for Putin. I want you to look at this. Yep. Saturn, in his lunar return, is going to oppose his natal Pluto, and it's also going to be in his north node. So how he conducts himself this month is going to be absolutely critical and key to the evolution of his plans and the success of them as he moves forward. Now, with Saturn and Pluto oppositions, typically what you get is a lot of pushback, a lot of restriction, a lot of pushback, and a lot of penalties, consequences for actions that we take. So conservative measures are always best applied when we have these types of transits. Saturn-Pluto transits are not fun, and he's carrying it across the angles. So what this would describe to me is somebody who's in a position where any move that they make in terms of their leadership or their decisions involving home, family, and hearth, which will also be the Russians, the entire Russian nation, will roundly be receiving criticism no matter what he does. And the less optimal those decisions are, the even larger the volume of the criticism and consequences that it will be. So this is not, remember, these are global charts, so it's not just us. This is his relationship with everyone around him, okay, which also includes his own people. So he's not going to get any good breaks this March if he doesn't tone this down, right? Now, also at the same time, because it is involving Neptune, the North Node. Now, thank God it's not exact, so there is no fated event here. But it is with the North Node, not the South Node, which suggests that this month is going to be critical in terms of him getting on board with his personal evolutionary mission, which in this particular case, I'm so glad I don't live in Russia and have to say this, has to do with democratic process or giving everyone an equal and respected voice at the table, especially when it comes to people in your personal tribe or your nation. This is, clearly he's been president for 20 years now. He's not interested in giving people an equal seat at the table, much less respecting their opinion, because they're not in charge. I am. Or at least that's the way it looks from the outside. But in this particular instance, with this month, everything is going to come right back to him learning the limitations of power and control and the consequences and penalties for the misuse of power and control, the use and abuse of power. Also, he is being required, if he wants to get through this successfully, to get into his Aquarius North Node and out of his South Node. So he has to get out of his pride for 5 minutes and allow himself to be humbled, or modest and humble, and allow other people, the differences of their opinions and perspectives, and an equal seat at the table with those different opinions and perspectives, and equal consideration as them being just as valid as his own. But he has to get out of this king, conqueror, god kind of mentality, and he has to let his pride simmer down a little bit and allow other people to have a say. So that's for people who are very proud to begin with, this is an extremely difficult task. And for people who are on a national stage, who have everything on the line, especially their authority over other people and their perception of being seen as a powerful authority, embracing leader who should be respected, pride is a very big deal, and it doesn't matter what country you're coming from. So in this particular situation, March is going to be a particularly testy and challenging month for him personally, because those are the things that are required for him to get through this successfully and to get where he's trying to get in a good, healthy way without conflict and bigger compromises than he ever wanted to make. So again, we're going backwards just a little bit. So this is the lunar return from February 9th to about March 9th. So this is the lunar return we are currently in right now. I wanted to take a closer look at it. So in this lunar return, we have the transiting sun opposing his conjuncting his Saturn and squaring his Jupiter. So what this is going to do is this is really going to, this month, moving into March, February to March, really highlight and expose the challenges between what he perceives as necessary risk-taking as opposed to maintaining what he has and reducing risk. So it's literally, do I jump or do I not jump? So it's a whole lot of teeter-tottering back and forth with a heavy emphasis on control versus generosity. So he is not going to be feeling very generous this month, and it's really, this month from February to March is really going to display the inner challenges he has with finding that balancing act between the two. And given the choice, this month he's going to opt towards more conservative or controlling behaviors. Transiting Uranus will be opposing his natal Venus. This is going to make relationships tense and unpredictable. So he may find that relationships he thought he could count on are not as stable as he once thought they were. Transiting Uranus opposing your Venus tends to destabilize relationships, and also there could be some market fluctuations with their economy going wildly up and down like a roller coaster. Transiting Uranus is not known for stabilizing anything and often brings with it unexpected surprises. In this case, it's going to come through the vehicles of relationships, partnerships, allies, and money. Now, his natal Uranus, transiting Venus and Mars. Wait a minute. Oh, this is a little bit complicated. Hang on, let me get my pen. All right, so his natal Uranus, it's on a midpoint. Here it is. Oh, right. Got a T-square going here. So, transiting Venus and Mars, which is going to be over, where are you, darling? There. And then Mercury, Pluto, which is going to be over, that's what it was, sorry. Sometimes you can't read your own writing, right? So the midpoint of Mercury, Venus, and, Mars, Venus, and Mercury, Pluto, the midpoint for these four planets is going to be in direct opposition to his natal Uranus. And I know this means absolutely nothing except like gobbledygook to everybody. What this is describing is this particular month from February to March is going to be fraught with lots of complicated considerations. The primary actor here for him is going to have a lot to do with family, nation, and tribe. So real estate assets, physical holdings, the family, the tribe, the nation. All of these things are going to be the driving motivation and the source of conflict in terms of what the right thing to do is when it involves the following things. Secret agreements that he's made that people are unaware of, his identity and how he perceives himself as a leader, also his financial assets and his ties to other people, and his ties to relationships with allies and or sponsors. So he's under the gun this month already between who he is beholden to and what's right for his country or family, which in his mind is the same thing. It also is going to involve complications that involve, again, debts and finances. So I don't know who he's legally bound to in terms of finances, who's loaned him money or who he owes money to, or that he's loaned money to, but these mutual debts, shared resources are going to become a problem at this time, and he may be very well left holding the bag and looking at some debt as a result of it, or some financial handicap as a result of it if this is not resolved soon. So this is a big, big deal and a hidden source of concern and motivation in terms of his actions right now between the month of February and March. Come March, it's not going to get any better. We just covered that. So that's what we've got on tap there. Now, hot dates for Putin in the month of February will be February 11th, which is already passed, And for him, it's going to be February 26th. Now, February 26th, Jupiter will square Mars, so that could potentially create some overconfidence and some unwise risk taking. So let's watch what happens come February 26th. As we get down closer after the 26th, from the 28th, there's a couple of days for breathing room here, but the 28th to the March 5th, this is when things are going to start getting messy, because the moon will then activate the T-square with Moon, Jupiter, and Mars in his chart. When this happens, impulsive, unwise, spontaneous, quick on the draw, hair trigger, speedy timing kind of things are more likely to happen. So if he were going to make a rash, spontaneous, or too quick on the draw, like much too impulsive decision without restraining himself as much as he should, it will occur between February 28th and March 5th. So that week right there is going to be a very, very tense week in terms of watching Putin and what he does. And so we're going to, well, all we can do, right, is keep an eye on that and see what happens. And hopefully he has advisors around him that can soothe the savage beast or whatever it is that's got him so tense with, and again, this I'm sure has a lot to do with his relationships with other people and financial debt, either money owed to him or money people owe him, right, or that he owes people. I mean, we don't know, but you know, he certainly does, and hopefully he's got advisors around him who will at least keep him from doing something really, really foolish. Okay, and let's see what else we got here. And this, my friends, is the solar return for 2022-2023, so this of the United States. So this will kick in after our birthday, so July 5th of 2022. This will be the year ahead horoscope until July 2023. This is our national horoscope for the year ahead. Now, and here's the good news, because you need this, right? We're not going into World War III. Yay, team, because this chart does not describe anything that looks like it might be World War III. In fact, what this does describe are a couple of really notable things as we get past the midterms, because the midterms are this year, aren't they? Yeah, 2020. So when we get to 2022, 2023, we've got some really important things happening. The first thing is we've got a grand trine Earth happening involving Uranus and Pluto and the moon, which represents the populace. So we are looking at a tremendous amount of protection and blessing and ease. Oh, doesn't that sound good? Ease. That will involve the common man, you and I, the regular people. And this will certainly involve circumstances and changes that are big, major, transformative changes and circumstances well beyond the control of anyone. So there's going to be the possibility of some very real and large divine intervention occurring that will change the course of the ship in a really, really good way for our nation, especially when it comes to economy and jobs and stability. So we're going to turn a corner next year. Hang on to that thought. We're going to turn a corner, and it will be a really positive one. And the most important thing, my friends, is that it will not only be stabilizing, it will be reformative, and it will be innovative. All the words I love to hear: reform, innovation, stability. And it seems like they wouldn't go together, but in this particular combination, they will. So it will be interesting to see how that plays out. Now, the other thing that is notable about this year is Mercury will sextile Mars. So we've got a beautiful Mercury sextile Mars happening this year, but they're both at the anaretic or critical degrees of 29 degrees, which literally means being on the, and I said it before, the precipice of great change. So we are looking at 2022, 2023, after this summer. Once this summer kicks in and moves forward for the personal year horoscope for the United States, we are about to turn a major corner and things are going to move. As a matter of fact, there may be some impatience to make things move even faster. And it won't take long. It should probably be maybe even August when things really start rolling and moving, like rocking and rolling almost immediately after we pass our birthday. Things that we can look for to make major changes, major abrupt, swift changes, will involve possibly stocks, education, communities, community health, and or transportation. So I'm not completely sure what infrastructure covers, but if it covers any of that, we can finally see this getting pushed through by the end of the summer or just shortly after that. And it will be hugely, wildly beneficial. Also, too, We are looking at things that involve our identity and our resources and also our debt, not just as a nation and the debt we owe to ourselves, because I'm not completely sure how that works either. It's a weird, convoluted thing, but also our global debt. Money people owe us, money we owe other people. All of these things will also reach the end of the line while this is happening. So we are literally about to come to the closing of a chapter after summer begins this year. That put us on a brand new path that is infinitely more stable and productive and growth oriented. So we will turn a corner and head in the right direction. Whew. Okay, well, at least that's my story. I'm sticking to it. Okay, so upshot, March is going to be a spicy, dicey month. We want to keep an eye on Putin on the hot dates listed, as well as Biden on the hot dates listed for him. And while we aren't running the country ourselves, and we certainly can't, run over and shake Biden by the shoulders and say, "What are you doing?" And we certainly can't go grab Putin by the ear, and tell him, "You've been a very naughty boy. Now sit down." We can't do these things as much as we'd like to. But what we can do is, as a whole, for the next couple of weeks, we can make a conscious, deliberate, meaningful intent to sit in silence and focus on an outcome together as a group. Your mind is powerful. Together we are a powerful force for good, and we really want to avoid the worst. And all of this is also to say that if something does happen, if something calamitous does occur, okay, and sets the ball rolling in that direction, it was not meant to be. This is not something that was fated and necessary and meant to be because we couldn't avoid it. This is not like Franklin Delano Roosevelt's chart when he entered into the conflict with Germany and we all found ourselves in the midst of World War II. That had to happen, unfortunately. This is not that kind of event. So if things happen, it's because we allowed them to happen. And the way you allow these things to happen is you keep ignoring them and pretending everything's fine or that it's all a hoax, yada, 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 yada. Do not let them panic you. Do not let them give you insomnia. Use your mind for something better than making yourself crazy with unproductive worrying or gossip or complaining. Use that powerful vehicle between your ears to set the intention and goal that we as a group, as a family, a tribe, a nation, whatever you want to call it, that we're going to get through this on the other side without having to go into military conflict. We can do this. It's been done before. You can do this, but you have to make the commitment to wanting to do something other than reinforce the very things you don't want. All right. So this has been the very, very long series about dogs and war and our national leaders and the possible Ukraine conflict. This is Ms. Jenny. I am your astrologer. I hope you enjoyed this. If you like it, please hit the like button, give me some feedback. If you didn't like it, hit the dislike button, give me some feedback. Comments are always appreciated. Citations are even better. No snarky remarks, no argument baiting, please. If I am wrong, feel free to correct me. Make sure you include citations and you're very clear so that we all understand. Use this as a teaching moment because we would all enjoy that. And with that said, my friends, we will get back to our regularly scheduled program that does not involve insomnia because we're terrified World War III is going to break out, because it won't. All right, you guys, big hugs, get some sleep, have a happy day. We've got a great year ahead of us as soon as we turn the corner on summer, but let's all work together to get through the spring. Bye.